say that Kronos and Kronos are the same deity, and some say they are not. Some say that Kronos is actually the leader of the Titans, while Kronos is actually the personification of time. Regardless if we think that he's the same deity or not, it doesn't really matter because he still resonates a lot with the theme of time. So Kronos is a lot about life's rhythm and learning to let go when it's time and we have outgrown something. Unlike with Demeter, who we also talked about in terms of stages of life and the ability to accept the stages of life, it's a little different with Kronos. Demeter was unwilling to accept that her daughter had grown up. However, Kronos was unwilling to accept that he had outlived his purpose, that it was time for change, and his unwillingness to give up his own position. Hello and welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chada. In this series, we're diving into the archetype of Greek mythology as a tool for self-discovery. If you haven't watched the introduction video yet, I'm gonna link it up above and down below so you can have a look at it. It will give you a better understanding on what this series is about. Also, I'm going to put the link of the playlist of the Greek gods in the description box as well, so you can watch the other videos too. One of the main myths of Kronos is actually how he overthrew his own father Uranus at the request of Gaia, his mother. Once he overthrew his father and became the ruler of the cosmos, he also became paranoid of his own children overthrowing him as well. To avoid this, Kronos swallowed each of his offsprings in order to avoid that. However, eventually his wife Rhea was able to trick him and hide his youngest child, which was Zeus, who would eventually overthrow him as well. In terms of interpretation, it's actually really interesting to note that all three generations had the same fear. So Uranus, Cronus and Zeus all feared to be overthrown by their children. So one interpretation that we can give this is actually the generational cycles that we go through. So what one generation doesn't work through, the next generation has to face until the cycle eventually gets broken. Another thing that Kronos was also strongly associated with was the Golden Age. So it is said that during Kronos' rules, everything was abundant, everything was perfect, there was no challenges, no difficulties, and everything was just doing great, which actually serves as a metaphor to idolize the past in favor of the current struggles that the generation might be facing. So phrases like, oh, in the past everything was easier. So it wasn't necessarily easier, there were just different challenges, and maybe compared to the one that we are experiencing in that moment, those old struggles seem less troublesome or less intense. His downfall also illustrates that there comes a time where we have to step down. There comes a time where a new generation will take over. This can be in terms of cycles, for example, a job that might have outlived its purpose, but we are unwilling to give it up, or maybe even in terms of head of the house, like the leader of the family, when it's just time to give or pass down that position to the next generations. Kronos, however, shows us the other aspect of time. So he doesn't just show us the constrictive part of time, that there is only so much time available or things are not gonna last forever, but also the other side of being patient, that everything has its own time. There are things we cannot control, it's outside of our control. So Kronos tried to control his own timing, but certain things cannot be controlled, and not just in terms of when things are over, but also when things will happen, showcasing that timing often matters more than speed. Learning to accept the rhythms of life, that maybe we are currently in a phase of our life where everything is stagnant and not moving forward, even though we're putting in the effort. So it's about accepting that stage of slow growth, knowing that eventually the growth, like life, will come around on its own, and basically we can reap our reward. So a way to look at it is also about learning to balance our inner and outer rhythm. So we might be in a different rhythm than the outside world, and it's about accepting that it's maybe time to take things slow, that things are not going as fast as we want them to. A balanced Cronus shows in our ability to accept life's rhythm and to trust timing that everything will unfold as it's meant to. This can mean waiting for the right opportunity or allowing relationships to grow naturally. And it can also be about that trust of everything is going to happen as it's meant to be. So even when the end of a stage approaches and you're like, you're noticing it's over, trusting that there's like a higher force at play who will guide you to the right thing at the right time, that there's something else for you in your next stage of life, and that there is no need to desperately cling to your current version of life. So an overactive Cronus can show himself in the inability to let go, to accept that things have changed. An obsessive need for control, but also our inability to let go of past success, where we are still hung up on something that we have achieved at some point and feel like this is all we are. We identify with that part of ourselves way too strongly. For example, you were able to win the golden medals at the Olympians. However, in the last 15 years, you have accomplished nothing else and you're rigidly stuck into that one success. Instead of moving forward, instead of accepting like, yes, this was a big success, but it's over now. It's time to move on. Maybe I need to change my approach to achieve the same or different kind of success. Or maybe it's time to go in a completely different direction. Maybe I was the athlete and now it's time to become the mentor or the coach. When Cronus is suppressed on the other side, we may lack patience or struggle to learn from past experiences. So when we did something over and over again and we refuse to accept that it might not be working and it's time to change approach or it's time to take a different direction. So we were so hung up on this specific thing that we wanted to achieve and we can't let it go, even though it's shown over and over again that this is not the right thing or not the right direction to go. As a consequence, this can leave us feeling aimless or ungrounded, where we're feeling out of control. So how to balance an overactive Cronus is actually simple but not easy. It's really about letting go of control, surrendering to life's own rhythm and its timing. So if you're doing everything right and you know you're doing everything right, you cannot force the outcome, or specifically you cannot force the timing of the outcome, because there are so many factors involved in accomplishing something that you can just simply not control. So there's this part where we can just put in the work and accept whatever comes out of it. So yes, we need to keep in touch and check in. Is everything still going according to plan? Am I using a wrong approach? Instead of rigidly sticking to something. So it's about reflecting. Am I still doing the right thing? And is it just about timing, or is it time to let go and approach something new? It's actually similar to Apollo, where Apollo was about learning to trust something that you cannot logically explain. Kronos is about trusting something that you cannot control. If Kronos is suppressed, on the other hand, it's about learning to be structured and disciplined. And it might sound counterintuitive, but a suppressed Kronos would actually also be about learning to cultivate patience. It's actually not so much about his overactive archetypal energy, but much more about his suppressed archetypal energy. Because overactive Kronos has this tendency to rigidly stick to a certain approach or to a certain things and is unwilling to let go. But with a suppressed Kronos, it's much more about we can't wait, we cannot accept that things have to take time. So overactive is about trusting timing, and underactive is about learning to accept timing. Also, when he's suppressed, it can be really helpful to reflect on the past. What is something that you have learned? Because Cronus is a lot about learning lessons of time. So time lessons, generational lessons, what have your parents done that might have not given the results that you wanted, or even whole generations. It's about looking into the past and learning from the past. This is basically it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Otherwise, I see you in the next one.